Eternal Eon Pathway. The Eternal Eon Pathway, also called the Dancer or Inevitability Pathway, stands for a predetermined fate, a fate that cannot be changed. This pathway focuses on ritual dances, spells, and gathering powers from themselves or other beings. They specialize in controlling fate and even seeing it before it happens. At high sequences, they hold authority over past, present, future, cause, process, effect, cycle, and inevitability. But first, what exactly is a non-standard pathway? You see, these are a little different from the 22 standard pathways in Lord of the Mysteries. More specifically, in Circle of Inevitability, the second book and direct sequel of the novel. These pathways exist outside the standard 22, but they still follow the same ranks, from sequence 9 to sequence 0. In this video, we'll go over their sequences, titles, skills, and abilities. Instead of drinking potions to advance, Beyonders of this pathway ask the Outer Deity, Circle of Inevitability, for a boon, which refers to the gift of Beyonder powers. But the more people ask for boons, the heavier the burden on the one granting them. Because of this, the Beyonders don't have Beyonder characteristics for the non-standard pathway. The only exception is in the Cosmos, where Beyonders can still advance with characteristics. For the Eternal Eon pathway, Beyonders pray directly to the Circle of Inevitability. At sequence 9, Dancer, they learn mysticism. They use dance, rhythm, and spirituality to connect with nature and speak with unknown entities. They perform the summoning dance to attract objects or spirits that temporarily possess them, letting them borrow powers for 20 to 30 seconds. With enigmatic dance, they can trigger special powers within their chest. Their spirituality merges with nature during dance, putting them in a transcendent state. They also become rhythm masters with incredible flexibility. At sequence 8, Alms Monk, they gain great endurance, resisting harsh environments and strong emotions. They sense recent fortunes with luck intuition and learn ritualistic spells like Prophecy Spell to ask 3 questions of a corpse, Luck Enchantment Spell to transfer misfortune, Animal Creation Spell to turn people into animals, Substitution Spell to swap fates, and Exorcism Spell to banish evil spirits. Their mysticism knowledge grows stronger. At sequence 7, Contractee, they create contracts with creatures to gain unique powers. They can hold up to 5 contracts, but each comes with a price and downside. They learn the mystical language of fate. Their summoning dance now affects higher status creatures, and their spirituality increases even more. At sequence 6, Ascetic, they gain compression for the mind, body, and mystic areas. They can build up emotions and release them for powerful effects. They boost their fighting strength for short bursts and simplify ritualistic spells for battle. Their Luck Enhancement spell now works on targets up to 13 days later. They can hold up to 8 contracts. At sequence 5, Fate Appropriator, they see the River of Fate to observe past, present, and future. They can appropriate or extract fate fragments and even exchange fate with others. They use Compelling Fate with Magnified Fate and Fate Rituals to influence events. They can store 3 fate fragments and hold up to 12 contracts. At sequence 4, Circle Inhabitant, they create a loop of fate to rewind themselves or others to a past state, with up to 9 cycles per loop. They can choose which part to rewind. They can now appropriate and exchange fate instantly, and even affect angel-level beings. As demigods at sequence 4, they can show part of their mythical creature form, which will become a complete form when they reach sequence 2. The form is a 3-headed, 6-armed giant whose heads show the past, present, and future. At sequence 3, Sufferer, they can reenact their own suffering on enemies. They can also fix their present state to resist desires or mental attacks without triggering fate loops. At sequence 2, Sinner, they gain power over the past and cause. They can return to any past moment and anchor a target's past sins to affect the present. They can also plant a false fragment of fate into the past for temporary use. At sequence 1, Angel of Redemption, they gain power over the future, effect, and destiny. They can lock a target's fate onto one outcome, align with the chosen future inside the River of Fate, and even create a new destiny. Some known Beyonders who reach this level include Lumion Lee, Termiboros, and of course, Amon. At sequence 0, Eternal Eon, they hold the ultimate power over cycle and inevitability. They unite past, present, future, cause, process, and effect. They can replace the future with the past, rewind the present to its cause, make any fate inevitable, and create new future outcomes to make sure their will becomes reality. The Chaos Primogenitor Pathway, also known as the Villain or Lady Pathway, holds absolute authority over reproduction, propagation, and the physical world. Beyonders on this pathway advance by praying to the Outer Deity, the Mother Goddess of Depravity. It starts at sequence 9, the Villain. Here, the body grows stronger, and they gain the power to scare enemies with supernatural fear while mastering close combat. At sequence 8, they become a Gardener. They gain deep knowledge of alchemy and plants, letting them craft poisons, healing items, and berserk potions. They also learn to use gardening tools as deadly weapons. At sequence 7, they become a Heretic Spellmaster. They now use heretical magic and control blood outside the body. They can create an undying land, draining life from captives to power spells, ignite blood into life-draining flames, and cast curses that cause dizziness, headaches, and fear. They also gain a ritual called New Life, which rebirths a target and removes hidden dangers like curses. At sequence 6, they become a sower. They turn into a progenitor of life. They can conceive children by desire, with the child born in a bird-like nest, useful for rare potions. They also create special seeds linked to their senses, allowing them to watch and communicate from a distance. At sequence 5, they ascend as a banshee. They change gender to female and step into the moon pathway's domain of beauty. They grow wings for flight, can unleash a death whale to kill weak enemies, heal wounds quickly, and summon demons and evil spirits. Their howl can even tear at a target's spirit. At sequence 4, they become a madam. They unlock their paramita, which is a personal realm where they control life's laws. Here, they can raise the dead, create life in large numbers, command high-level beings like devils, and use divine nectar for powerful healing. At sequence 3, they rise as the Divine Mother. This is a weakened form of sequence 0 that can give birth to gods and gain divine traits. They can also show parts of their mythical creature form without losing control. At sequence 2, they become the Supreme. They embody the physical world, making them almost impossible to kill. They grant life and revive the dead under certain conditions. Any attack on them rebounds with the force of reality's backlash. They can also subtly alter minds through the life they grant. At sequence 1, they become the Valley God, also called the Tree God. They become the root of heaven and earth, holding up the sky. They gain power over reproduction and propagation, letting them give life freely, revive the dead under set rules, or take life instantly. The Valley God can also create new personalities inside people, changing their minds to suit their will. Once this power touches someone, escape is impossible unless the Valley God chooses to lift it. Life itself spreads the corruption. Their mythical creature form is a huge greenish oak tree that stretches into the heavens, symbolizing endless life. Finally, at sequence 0, they become the Chaos Primogenitor, the original sin of the universe, and the seed of the next. They hold the supreme power to give life to anything, even enemy attacks, and can cause death instantly. They carry within them the potential of the next universe. Hold up real quick. Before we jump to the next non-standard pathway and break down its main sequences and abilities, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to stick around until the end and hit that like and subscribe button. Alright, let's get back into it. The Patriarch Pathway. Also called the Actor Pathway or the Desires Pathway. This path is all about satisfying twisted cravings and forcing desires onto others. This pathway specializes in making people greedy, lustful, or obsessed. It also lets you imitate others perfectly, enter dreams, drain life, and play with love and envy like toys in your hands. The Patriarch Pathway holds authority over love, envy, reason, and sentient beings. Those who follow it are linked to the Mother Tree of Desire. This pathway also mixes with a pathway of blathering. At its peak, the Patriarch becomes the ruler of all sentient beings. As long as people have desires, the Patriarch's influence will remain, whispering illusions and temptations that lead them astray. This ensures the Patriarch will never truly die. At sequence 9, you become a Scrooge. You can force people to feel greed and hunger. You can track your lost possessions and make others crave anything you choose. At sequence 8, you become a sex addict. You can drive people into lustful frenzies just by your gaze, touch, or words. Your body becomes tougher and your mind is always craving intimacy. At sequence 7, you become an actor. You awaken a strong craving to perform and be noticed. You can imitate others perfectly and even gain weaker versions of their abilities if you study them long enough. You can also act as animals, shadows, or different jobs, making your disguises nearly flawless. At sequence 6, you become a recipient. You gain an adrenaline boost for sudden strength. You can stir the needs for success in others while always craving it yourself. At sequence 5, you become a fallen tree spirit. You can enter dreams, lure victims into interacting with you, and drain their energy through these dreams. You also gain the power to control trees and vines. Your control over desires becomes stronger, making you feel like you own your victims. At sequence 4, you become a tree supplicant. You can pray to the Mother Tree of Desire for temporary powers. You also gain the ability to summon tree ants, driven by their desire for knowledge and survival. At sequence 3, you rise as a desire priest. You act as an executor of desire, stripping people of reason and making them slaves to their cravings. At sequence 2, you become Cupid. You gain authority over love itself. You can make anyone fall in love with you or with abstract ideas like eliminating. You can fire arrows that steal hearts and even affect concepts with your power. At sequence 1, you transform into Leviathan. You take authority over envy and reason, stirring jealousy and a desire to dominate others. Your mythical creature form is a massive tree-like sea monster covered in blossoms and scales. Finally, at sequence 0, you become the Patriarch. the sovereign of all sentient beings. Your whispers echo forever, leading people deeper into desire and illusion. As long as desires exist, your power will never fade. Chaos Mist Pathway. The Chaos Mist Pathway is all about living in the gray, that space between order and shadows, and the fog between light and darkness. It stands for the truth of chaos, where nothing is certain, and everything people believe can fall apart. Beyonders in this pathway can act like platforms, making deals between different groups. They create a kind of vortex where many forces get involved. They don't advance by drinking potions. Instead, they pray to the Outer Deity, Uncertain Mist, for a boon. Their Sephira comes from what's left of the Son of Chaos' Sephira, which turned into the Nation of Disorder. At Sequence 9, as a broker, they gain brokering. This lets them handle deals through words and connections, setting prices and keeping relationships strong. They also get Gray Perception, which lets them sense the Gray Domain and exceptional eloquence, making them masters of language who can read people's emotions just by how they talk. At Sequence 8, as a Shadow Merchant, they gain Shadow Creature Detection. This lets them spot hidden things lurking in shadows, so they can make deals safely under strict rules. Their pacifying aura calms malice nearby. With Shadow Utilization, they can use shadows in many ways, such as Shadow Concealment, Shadow Transformation, Fake Shadow Creation, and Shadow Contract, where shadows witness deals and punish anyone who breaks them. These contracts also twist terms secretly in the user's favor. At Sequence 7, as a prosecutor, they gain mysticism knowledge about the words of order. They also get Crime Discernment, letting them detect crimes without seeing them happen. With Accusation, they can declare someone guilty, forcing them to suffer anything from restrictions to instant death, depending on how serious the crime is. At Sequence 6, as an Ambitionist, they gain Ambitious Drive, which gives them a powerful body, sharp senses, and strong spirituality. They also gain Mental Resistance, helping them fight off sleep, dreams, or anything trying to make them stop. At Sequence 5, as Under the Table, they gain the skill Under the Table. This lets them set up hidden deals in emergencies, even forcing enemies to accept offers under strict terms. They can also make real under-the-table trades with unknown parties, getting what they want but risking strange side effects. Their Gray Perception gets stronger, helping them judge people for deals. At Sequence 4, as an Overseer, they gain Overseeing. This lets them watch over and influence everything within 2,000 meters. They also get Protection. Attacks from non-gods bounce back, while attacks from gods hit invisible barriers and punish the attacker. All their other skills, Accusation, Shadow Utilization, Shadow Contract, Brokering, and Gray Perception, go stronger at this level. At Sequence 3, as a Vortex Weaver, they gain Vortex Weaving. This lets them create complex trade networks with many parties. They can announce deals using words of order, trade over long distances, and ignore rank differences with ritual protection. They can even turn into mist inside the vortex to dodge attacks. At Sequence 2, as a Blasphemer, they gain authority over blasphemy, also called deconstruction. This lets them break down anything sacred or cursed and steal power from deals, even deals with beings stronger than them. At Sequence 1, as Truth, they embody truth within Gray. They get to define what's real in the gray area, even changing logic itself. At the peak, Sequence 0, as Chaos Mist, they become chaos itself, the power of uncertainty. They make every certainty uncertain, whether it's fate, words, or events. They rule as the pure embodiment of chaos. The Tail Devourer Pathway. These Beyonders study and process ingredients to cook mystical dishes, take powers from others, and devour Beyonder characteristics and mystical items to grow stronger. At the highest level, they aim to devour everything, even themselves, reaching the final convergence and true satiety. They pray to the Outer Deity, Primordial Hunger, for a boon. At Sequence 9, as a Tramp, they gain Hunger. They lose everything and live only to search for food. This hunger boosts their ability to adapt, improves street fighting skills, strengthens their resistance, and enhances digestion. At Sequence 8, as a Glutton, they gain digestive enhancements. They develop strong teeth, tougher organs, and resistance to toxins. They can now extract abilities from the food they eat. Their hunger grows past human limits, driving them to eat without end. At Sequence 7, as a Gourmet, they unlock ingredient analysis. This lets them study ingredients, find edible parts, discover special effects, and even pull memories from the food they eat. Their digestive enhancements improve, letting them gain even more from what they consume. At Sequence 6, as a Chef, they gain Cooking. They can use rare ingredients to make mystical dishes, drinks, and brews with temporary or permanent effects. Chefs can't fully eat Beyonder characteristics yet, but they can cook with them, creating dishes with different effects or risks. They also gain ingredient processing, become skilled at cutting, slicing, and spotting weak points in ingredients. At Sequence 5, as a Depriver, they gain Deprivation. They can steal 1 to 3 abilities from a target for a short time. By eating parts of the target's flesh, they can take one of those abilities forever, making the victim lose it until they drink a potion again or kill the Depriver. Their digestive enhancements now let them eat things like corruption, fireballs, lightning, and other energy forms. Their cooking and ingredient processing also grow strong enough to handle these energies in their dishes. At Sequence 4, as a sea monster, they undergo physical enhancements, turning into a massive being able to eat up 20 tons of food at once. Their digestive enhancements now allow them to devour Beyonder characteristics and mystical items without losing control. They can store these powers for later while building up madness and hunger. At Sequence 3, as a Hydra, their digestive enhancements grow even stronger. They can now turn the powers and items they devour into extra bodies and heads, allowing them to attack up to 9 times at once. At Sequence 2, as an Angel of Devouring, they gain authority over devouring. This lets them consume physical things, rules, and shallow concepts. Using a vortex in their mouths, they can swallow up concepts or rules either for a while or forever. They can even copy what they devour once if they want. They also become full mythical creatures at this stage. Their form turns into a dark vortex with sharp white teeth like a living stomach. At Sequence 1, as Chaos Gastric Juices, they fully embody devouring. They can digest and erase anything except for the Great Old One's imprints, Sephiroth, and Beyonder characteristics. They can devour things like emotions, memories, day, night, order, disaster, or even entire places. At the peak, Sequence 0, as the Tail Devourer, they become the embodiment of convergence and hunger. They try to devour everything, even themselves, to reach the ultimate convergence. They also start to influence fate itself, becoming the perfect being of endless hunger and self-renewal. Condenser Pathway. The Condenser Pathway focuses on controlling gravity abnormality, cosmic rays, and electromagnetic attractions. It also lets users graze celestial bodies and create cosmic void battlefields. At its peak, this pathway grants authority over fusion, cosmic laws, fundamental forces, attraction, weight, and density. Beyonders pray to the Outer Deity Supernova Dominator for a boon, drawing power from the stars and the Earth. At Sequence 9, as an astronomy aficionado, they gain astronomical knowledge, letting them understand the cosmos and reality. Physical enhancement boosts their body, making them tougher. At Sequence 8, as a star worshipper, they unlock the language of stars. This gives them spiritual intuition, helping them avoid danger and read the stars, tides, and waves for guidance. At Sequence 7, as a star sacrificer, they gain gravity abnormality, letting them control gravity and change weight in the area. They unlock Cosmic Ray, Weakening Ray to fire energy beams that damage enemies quickly. They use electromagnetic attraction to pull objects together and Cosmic Void to trap enemies in dark illusions. Their physical enhancement grows stronger. At Sequence 6, as a navigator, they gain navigational knowledge. This helps them find and hide in illusionary passageways in the void, escape danger, and guide ships through storms or by the stars. They can master another Cosmic Ray and shoot blue beams of light from their eyes. At Sequence 5, as a Tidal Scholar, they strengthen gravity abnormality, letting them control waves, slow attacks, and change how fast objects move. They can intensify heaviness, pulling targets down and slowing them like they're stuck in amber. They apply Cosmic Rays to spatial constructs and bring objects into the Cosmic Void. Their physical enhancement now gives them strong starlight scales. At Sequence 4, as a Heavy Bringer, they can pull everything within hundreds of meters using gravity abnormality. Bending void and twisting fate toward themselves, they can crush weaker enemies, increase weight so much that it warps surroundings, and create dark spheres that block teleportation. They can banish targets into a night sky illusion with Cosmic Void, stunning them. With Holy Light Conversion, they turn environmental light into attack power. Their Cosmic Ray, Weakening Ray, can melt targets, and they gain enhanced perception to spot hidden dangers. At Sequence 3, as a Star Shepherd, they unlock Star Grazing. This lets them graze asteroids, cause fusion, and control mystical stars. They can send out war comets to bring disasters, and to master fundamental forces like electromagnetic and nuclear power to direct matter control. At Sequence 2, as a Radiant Angel, they control fusion through magnetic confinement, glowing like a star. They fool divination attempts using star grazing and take on a mythical creature form made of dense fusion clusters. At Sequence 1, as a Star Dragon, they rule over cosmic laws. They can shift planetary orbits, spark electromagnetic storms, and drive asteroids to crash into planets. They achieve fusion with inertial confinement and create true cosmic void battlefields full of deadly radiation. At Sequence 0, as the Condenser, they master weight and density, reaching the mass of a white dwarf or neutron star. They can even become black holes by choice. With control over the authority of fundamental forces and fusion, they shape the galaxy itself, bending the universe to their will. The Everlasting Pathway. This pathway grants power over consciousness and spirit. Its Beyonders can control minds, plant knowledge, and sway countless souls with philosophies that balance wisdom and madness. At their peak, they become spiritual beings of corruptive ravings, eternal consciousness that can never truly die. They pray to the Outer Deity, inextinguishable ravings for a boon, tying themselves to endless whispers of truth and lunacy. At Sequence 9, as an initiator, they learn initiation. They use rituals like Midoro's worship, which lets their astral projections rise through the formless door to see divine realms. This grants them unique knowledge and abilities. At Sequence 8, as a commentator, they unlock commentary. This lets them sense mental changes in others. With this sharp perception, they can understand people even better than those people understand themselves. At Sequence 7, as an orator, they gain oratory. They can channel spiritual power through their speech. Anyone who hears them will feel their minds slowly bend under the weight of carefully chosen words. At Sequence 6, as a singer, they gain singing. With this, they use melodies to bring the powers they gain from Ascension into the real world. Each song causes a different effect, shaped by the insights they unlocked as an initiator. At Sequence 5, as a secret transmitter, they learn transmit. This lets them directly pass on secrets from their Ascension, whether harmless or dangerous, through spiritual communication. These secrets empower both the transmitter and the listener, sometimes even turning into reality. At Sequence 4, as a philosopher, they gain power from different philosophies, always walking a thin line between wisdom and madness. They can drag others into their philosophical world, forcing them to reflect on deep concepts. This often causes madness or loss of control. They use ideas like materialism to cancel out supernatural phenomena, or subjective idealism to make projections of themselves based on shared beliefs. However, starting from Sequence 2, they can't use materialism anymore because their nature becomes purely supernatural. At Sequence 3, as a messenger of God, they become divine envoys. They unlock envoy receiving revelations from the Great Old Ones. This gives them powerful, corrupting secrets but leaves them at the mercy of ancient beings. At Sequence 2, as the Great Old One attendant, they channel the consciousness and spirits of the Great Old Ones. They become pure spiritual beings tied to the inextinguishable ravings. They can possess creatures or objects, and often appear as dark-robed figures hiding twisted tentacles underneath. At Sequence 1, as the voice of the heart, they become the voice of the mind. They turn into unstoppable ravings that echo inside the hearts of every conscious being on their planet. They no longer have a body, existing only as whispers in people's minds. Finally, at Sequence 0, as the everlasting, they master consciousness and spirit. Even if they die, their spirit stays behind, slowly reviving over time. This ensures that their influence and consciousness will live on forever. The second law pathway, also called the decay pathway, commands disease, decay, and inevitable death. It spreads pathogens, corrupts groups from within, and uses attacks that guarantee death. It also masters self-division and replicates to survive. At its peak, it holds authority over time, senescence, disease, decay, and entropy. Beyonders on this pathway advance by praying to the Monarch of Decay, joining with the slow rot that eats away at existence. At Sequence 9, as a patient, they gain disease constitution. This lets them carry and spread diseases without harming themselves. Their bodily fluids spread pathogens, and they can make ulcerous wounds that release diseases into the air around them. At Sequence 8, as a secretary, they gain bureaucracy. This lets them twist systems and rules inside organizations to spread decay. Over time, they lose empathy and become tools of corruption, breaking things down through administrative rot. At Sequence 7, as vermin, they embody corruption. They feed off organizations by encouraging greed and selfishness in others. They hollow out groups from the inside until they fall apart, offering their collapse as a gift to the Monarch of Decay. At Sequence 6, as disease envoys, they gain disease bestowal. This lets them give both real and symbolic diseases, like laziness or corruption, to people around them. These illnesses often match the weaknesses of their targets, spreading decay in a way that feels almost personal. At Sequence 5, as a child of decay, they become living pathogens. They can make others decay, and by dividing and replicating themselves, they're almost impossible to kill. Their bodies split apart and grow black, always spreading more disease. At Sequence 4, as a doomed one, they enter the avatar of pathogen state. They cover themselves in yellow-green pus and dissolve into countless pathogens, dodging attacks and healing quickly. They can make clones as strong as the original, which must all be destroyed at once to stop them. They also wield certain death, a green-black beam that kills on impact, and sure hit, a dark yellow beam that never misses its real target. At Sequence 3, as the left hand of decay, their left hand gains near angel power. Anyone who sees it freezes in place, their mind rotting until death. This hand can rot the environment, cancel out Beyonder's powers, and kill most enemies with a single touch. Their left hand becomes fully bluish and swollen, turning semi-transparent and filled with yellow-green pus. This is also their mythical creature form. At Sequence 2, as a time giant, they gain power over time. They can speed it up, slow it down, break it apart, or twist it to confuse enemies. Their mythical creature form appears as a huge rotting body made of countless pathogens. At Sequence 1, as the God of Decay, they combine decay with time. They wield senescence, speeding up aging as the deadliest disease to ensure that everything must rot and die. Finally, at sequence 0, as the second law, they become the living force of entropy, disease, and decay. They represent the second law of thermodynamics and the twilight of existence. They bring the final end, when even the universe itself will rot away. The Sublunary Eye Pathway. The Sublunary Eye Pathway, also called the Eye of the Mortal Realm, grants power over territory creation, true sight, and the ability to mix imagination with reality. In the early stages, this power focuses on painting, imagination, and reality. But as they advance, Beyonders of this pathway dive into string theory and dimensional mastery, controlling the hidden layers of the universe. They grow stronger by praying to the high dimensional overseer, receiving boons as they rise from sequence 9 to sequence 0. At sequence 9, as a shaman, they gain territory creation. They set up totems to borrow spirituality from the air, earth, and nearby creatures, casting spells inside their domain. They can also connect their spirit body to higher worlds, though this comes with danger. Creatures from other dimensions may try to take over if their soul is breached. At sequence 8, as a reporter, they awaken true sight. This lets them see through illusions, spot hidden spirit threads, and view multiple layers of reality at once. Their speed increases and their territories become tougher, even when their shields are broken. At sequence 7, as a painter, they turn art into a weapon. With painting, they can add mystical effects to their artwork. Just looking at their paintings can confuse people or drive them mad. Some of their art can even become real, like a painted door opening into the mirror world. They can disguise people with paint or hide inside their own drawings. At sequence 6, as a literary aficionado, they unlock fantasy materialization. This allows them to bring their imagination into reality. Their paintings no longer just influence the world as they now fully materialize. At sequence 5, as a pixie, they gain dimension shifting. They can exist between the spirit world and reality, making them untouchable and invisible. They grow dragonfly-like wings and can fly. They also create incomplete worlds inside their paintings, which are miniature realms guarded by spirit servants, perfect for trapping enemies or escaping danger. At sequence 4, as a visitor, they become dimensional travelers. They move freely across dimensions and points in space-time. They can even host otherworldly entities inside their body and summon them to fight. At sequence 3, as a string player, they gain control over strings, using them to shape reality, create illusions, and weave power into the world around them. At sequence 2, as a dimensional shadow, they ascend into higher dimensional beings. They master dimensions completely, creating stable worlds inside their paintings where life can exist. At this stage, they also become a full mythical creature known as a dimensional shadow. At sequence 1, as an observer, their very gaze can alter fate and outcomes. They use higher dimensions to set up revival points. They can also create clones from fantasies to trick enemies about their real location. Finally, at sequence 0, as the Sublunary Eye, they become the ultimate seers of truth. They can see every change in fate and reality. When they watch, the world shines with brilliance. When they look away, all falls silent. The Eternal Edict Pathway, also known as the Dreamless Pathway, is the pathway of fate. Those who follow this path gain revelations directly from the River of Fate, learning how to influence, weave, and judge it. In the end, they achieve eternal life through fate itself. In the world of Circle of Inevitability, Beyonders on this path pray to the Goddess of Fate for a boon. At sequence 9, as a Dreamless, they lose the ability to dream. This cuts them off from the world of illusions and lets them sense the true flow of fate. Even midnight poets struggle to drag themselves into dreams, giving them resistance to dream-based powers. At sequence 8, as a musician, they start hearing the voices of fate. They can play these voices like a fate symphony. Each note touches the river of fate, making a target's mind weaker, awakening hidden desires, worsening illnesses, or bringing bad luck. Some musicians even blind themselves to hear fate's melody more clearly. At sequence 7, as a fate prior, they gain the ability to see and hear fate's revelations without any medium. Fate appears to them as countless threads, letting them understand people's goals, motives, and future paths. Their spiritual intuition sharpens, giving them a strong sense of danger. At sequence 6, as a mute, they gain words of fate. By speaking, they can tie a person's mind to their fate, making them relive past tragedies or face their social ruin. But after each use, they must stay silent. If they don't, fate's backlash strikes. At sequence 5, as a deceased, they can fake their death. This lets them break free from their original destiny and trick both prophecy and divination. Once free, they continue to see and influence fate without being bound by prior limitations. At sequence 4, as a fate bender, they unlock true fate manipulation. They can reshape destinies, their own or others, turning future outcomes in their favor. At sequence 3, as a fate's attendant, they become fate weavers. They arrange, weave, and control the fates of many at once. They gain a web-like perception of fate that lets them track their target states, places, and actions. But weaving the fates of powerful beings comes with a painful cost, often causing self-harm unless treated by certain pathways. At Sequence 2, as a web weaver, they gain authority over weaving fate. They can weave new fates for anyone, including themselves, without backlash. They can even weave events into a person's past, causing present trauma even though the past doesn't change. At this stage, they become a mythical creature, a three-bodied being. The left body is eyeless, representing the weaving fate. The central body is armless, symbolizing the gathering fate. The right body is headless, standing for the judging fate. However, the armless and headless bodies stay blurred and not yet fully formed. At Sequence 1, as the Blade of Fate, they gain the authority of judgment. They can form the Blade of Fate, cutting destinies and their branches, deciding who lives or dies by severing fate itself. Finally, at Sequence 0, as the Eternal Edict, they master the weaving, gathering, and judging of all fates. They gain eternal life within the River of Fate. Even if their body is destroyed, their consciousness returns through fate itself, reviving without the need for normal resurrection. So I guess the real question is, which pathway would you pick for yourself? Drop your choice in the comments down below. That's every non-standard pathway in the Circle of Inevitability. And trust me, some of these are even more mysterious than the standard ones. We've already broken those down in another video. So, if you're ready to dive even deeper into the world of Lord of the Mysteries, click the next video now.